How you doing? I'm Chris Egnoto. You are watching Nature Here and Now. Listen to that chorus. Uh, Tons and tons of spring peepers, and I can hear a bunch of wood frogs singing also. It is so windy today, but it's going to rain tonight. Mind you, it's also 70 degrees, but this is going to be the second rain of the season, or of this time of year. We've been in a drought. Last year was a severe drought, worst in history. And so some populations are, largely affected by that. Not tonight. So you notice it's quiet right now. Well, all sorts of things will cause them to quieten down. Say a skunk or a fox moves through, or a person, somebody with their dog. Sometimes even a low-flying airplane or car can, shut them up for a while. However, all sorts of things can also cause them to start singing. And if, one or two stops, then the rest might be like, what's going on? And then they all stop. And then they start up again. Once one starts singing, all the rest were like, well, me too. Because they are calling for females right now. These are all the males that you hear. And this is the sound that they make to attract the females to the vernal pools, but also to impress the females. Like, hey, I'm really healthy. I've got a good song, got a good voice, good lungs. And so, if they're lucky, they will get a mate. There's a lot more males to female. The ratio isn't 50-50. So that's an issue too. That's why they're singing so strong, because every boy out there really wants to get a girlfriend, to spread their genes, to go on a date, and have a romantic evening, Netflix, and so there you go. Now, check this out. To me, that doesn't sound like you're too close to it. So you might have noticed a bit of a trill, right? Some of these frogs are trilling as they call. That trill is usually a territorial thing. Like if another male gets too close, one of them will trill. Usually the one that's already sitting there will trill. These frogs are everywhere here, but they're very hard to see. They blend in amazingly with the environment, with this habitat. They're the exact same colors. Tan, brown, dark brown X on their back. Their science name is Pseudocris crucifer, and that, the crucifer part describes the X on their back. It looks like a cross. But not all spring peepers have that, and sometimes it's not perfectly formed. Now, sometimes you'll hear a call that's a little different. It's not a trill or that perfect preep sound. It's kind of like a or a, and that is a release call. And that's when one male grabs another male and hopes that he found himself a female. And it's like, hey, let go. I'm not a girl. I'm not your girlfriend. We're not going on any dates here. And he's like, oh, okay. And then sometimes if they're combating each other, you might hear some of those calls also. As I said, these frogs blend perfectly into this environment. They're the same colors. Sometimes you'll get like an orange one or a pink one, but for the most part, these are the exact colors of the frogs, minus the green. And it can be very hard to find them. So sometimes you have to wait for them to inflate their vocal sac, right? And that's how they make that's like the amplifier of their song. And so you'll see that little bit of movement, and then you're like, there it is. But you blink, you can lose them. Even if they're sitting right on the ground, on the grass. But very often they're on stems, on twigs, or under like a little tuft of grass or leaves. They try to find somewhat of a safe spot. And I've noticed that some of them really love spots that amplify their call, like a little nook of leaves shaped like a cone or a funnel, like those old school megaphones. But I can hear tons of wood frogs singing too. So as I said, that pouch that inflates, looks like a bubble gum, that's their vocal sac. spring peepers have it right here under their chin, right? Whereas the wood frogs have one on each side, so they have two vocal sacs. So much fun to watch. Yeah, that's a good idea. This body of water, this one over here has fish in it, right? And this one doesn't. This is more of your vernal pool type of thing. And vernal, I see a wood frog right now doing this thing. But the reason why you don't have them in the pond is because the pond has fish. The vernal pool doesn't. Now, frog eggs, frog larvae, which are the tadpoles and polywogs, are amazingly tasty. They're soft, they're nutritious. Fish love them, right? So if they lay their eggs in a spot that's inhabited by fish, they're not going to make it. All their eggs will be gone. Now, some of the other frogs, like the ranids, the bullfrogs and green frogs, they will lay their eggs in water that has fish, but not these vernal pool specialists. So there's the answer to that. One trying to call in the girls, right? Because you know why they're doing this, right? They all want dates. They're doing that all the time, because I've seen some that are just isolated by themselves and they're still doing that. And then other times I'll hear a call that it's going to sound exactly the same as the rest, but if you once you get used to it, or you'll probably hear it way better than me. It'll be like a wow or what, which sounds like that. It's a release call, and that's when like another boy is like, "Hey, how you doing? Let's go in." And it's like, "No, dude, I'm not a girl." I feel like that one's just doing it. I mean, just doing his call.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't see him. It would be fun to see if there's one right next to him, because right now it sounds like there's a lot here, but it can get much more intense. Okay, so predators for these amphibians will be raccoons, foxes in some cases, and I saw a skunk chowing down on one once. I think possums, and then you've got, of course, you've got snakes and things that'll, capitalize on these. But some owls, if it's there, they're opportunists, especially the hawks, like the red tail, right? And a lot of birds, crows, ravens, will definitely consume them. Herons, like the great heron, which they're always around, except for right now. I bet there's one over there though. And so various birds, reptiles, snapping turtles, right? And all that kind of stuff. So they have a lot to watch out for, so this one will start again. That one's going nutty. I wonder if the girl's next to him. See all the ripples? I'm not used to that. I'm used to them, even if they're still, they'll go, and then they'll stop again. So that's interesting. So there was another question, and I do not recall it, but it was fun. It was, you asked it, or was it you? I think it was you.
I have no idea.
It was a good one. I don't remember either, so. If you liked the video so far, why not show it by hitting that like button? And if you haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button, because it tells the algorithm that people like my content, and that helps me to be able to get to, environments such as this one, find the wildlife, and to be able to produce the wildlife content that viewers appreciate. Anyways, back to the video. So right over there, there's a baby fishing spider. It's going to get about this big, and it'll have 6 bright white spots that look like lights. And it can swim underwater. And when it goes underwater, it turns silver. It looks like mercury. You're cool. The reason why we have all these wood frogs singing in the spring peepers is wood frogs specifically have this ability where they can stay really close to the surface where the frost line is. They could be above the frost line, so they can actually freeze into basically an ice cube. They can be 90 to I think 93% frozen as a solid chunk of ice. And what they do is they I think it's their livers, they pump out this really concentrated glucose. So it's like liquid sugar. And if you've ever frozen like Kool-Aid or something, you notice like the real syrupy stuff in the bottom stays gooey. It doesn't freeze solid like the water does. So that keeps them from actually freezing. So it gives them a jump start on the season ahead of frogs like green frogs and bullfrogs and stuff. They can be close to the surface, and as soon as it's warm enough, like above 43 degrees, and there's water, forming the vernal pools, which are temporary seasonal pools, they can get right in there, capitalize, they can breed before the other competition moves in. And in some cases, the vernal pools dry up, so quickly, they want to get there as soon as possible. So right here, in this little froglet, or it's not a froglet, this is an adult male spring peeper. And I don't know if I filmed the female, but the males are 50% smaller than the females. This is about the size of a male spring peeper. This one's a little small, but that's generally about how big these things are. So all that noise you're hearing, he just jumped off into the water. So spring peepers lay their eggs differently from, like, say, wood frogs or green frogs or any of the other frogs, really. They actually place their eggs individually on branches and twigs and stuff, whereas the other frogs will lay them in giant masses and clumps. They look like a clutch of grapes, or what do you call it? A bunch of grapes, But if you look closely here, let me wet it. The eggs are actually individually attached to the stem, okay? And that's how spring peepers lay their eggs. But I'm going to put this back in the water. So obviously, like everything else, the reason they lay so many eggs is the mortality rate is super high. Some of them just won't make it. And that's just on their own. They might not make it. They might be swimming in circles or something when the larvae hatch. But there's a lot of predation. Sometimes even larger amphibians will just snatch up the tadpoles or polywogs. Eggs are tasty, so things will eat the eggs and all. So, the amphibians will lay tons of eggs because of that purpose, in hopes that some of them will make it. Sometimes you'll have a toad laying, 2,000 or 15,000 eggs, and only like 5 of them actually make it to maturity. So it's a really dangerous game out there if you're an amphibian or generally anything but a human. Now, obviously, the early spring spotlight doesn't just shine upon the spring peepers and the wood frogs. Those animals also share the stage with what I like to refer to as the flagships of the amphibian breeding season. And those are none other than the ambystamids or mole salamanders. In this area here, they are represented by the spotted salamanders, and those animals are such a marvelous and majestic presence on the playing field. When compared to tiny animals like the spring peepers, the spotted salamanders are titans. And something really interesting about the spotted salamanders is the fact that some of their eggs, like certain individuals, will lay cloudy eggs, like this bluish cloudiness, and other ones are totally clear. And we have yet to know why that's the case. They'll look like a cluster of marbles wrapped in saran wrap. Okay. But anyways, spring peeper eggs are rather different because they're single solitary eggs in comparison to all the other inhabitants of these wetlands. So this is pretty nice. Under this one log, we've got a lead morph, and we've got 2 red morphs, and a spotted. And because I'm greedy, I want to find one more salamander that was under the same log, because it would be a better number. Oh, that's going to be a fail, isn't it? There's not an extra one over there.
Don't believe so.
That's it. Nature's lame because they didn't give us an extra Sally. Awesomeness, though. We got Ambystoma maculatum. Good one. Feels a little dry. A little bit small, but that is awesome. So, I'm gonna have you first. Do you want me to pick her up and put her in her hand, or you want to have the honors? Actually, you have the honors of picking her up. You cool with that? Sure. Okay, so these around here, those are called costal grooves, and the salamanders don't have ribs. So these grooves actually help give it some of the structural support, and I'm sure they serve other purposes, but I don't know. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've read that they do, but I don't remember because I don't remember things. Based on the species, they'll have different numbers of grooves, but I haven't paid attention to how many grooves a spotted salamander has. Okay, so ask the question again.
So on the back of their head here, there's like a beading. What would that be?
So we're both speculating on this. Like, I don't know either, but it looks like, I'm thinking maybe heart, yeah, I'm getting it. Maybe heartbeat. But then again, they do, so you know how like redbacks are lungless? These salamanders, you see how big they are?
Yeah.
So to be able to exchange oxygen that way, the surface area is pretty big. So wouldn't, you know how like when a cell gets too big, it can't get rid of toxins?
Yeah.
Because the surface area, the inner mass gets bigger, right? And then the surface area gets smaller ratio wise. The same thing happens with these as far as exchanging oxygen. So I'm pretty sure that these larger, because these are mole salamanders, and they do have lungs. They still exchange oxygen through their skin, but they also have lungs. So she's probably breathing through her nose if it's a she. I feel like that's the heartbeat.
I feel like it probably is.
Yeah, I think that's a heartbeat, or a pulse. But at the same time, yeah.
Because their lungs are probably back further in here.
Right.
Because their mouth's up here.
Exactly. And like some things you see us breathing hard.
Yeah.
But I don't think we would be seeing it back there on her, or for her to be breathing that hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's pulse. But yeah, so that's the thing with the lungs, isn't, you know, like that's kind of interesting. So they do have a kind of a lung situation going on. I don't know how advanced the lungs are compared to other things, but at this size of salamander, because it's so big, it still has to develop lungs especially when it leaves the vernal. But it can still exchange oxygen through its skin and absorb that way. Do you want to say?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So here we have two redback salamanders. The one here, who's currently getting away from me, has the red stripe, which gives them their name. So that's the one on my right hand, and then the one on my left hand is fully black, which is one of their morphs, which is commonly referred to as the lead morph or the lead-backed morph.
Hey, Chris, what's that in your hand?
5 solid salamanders.
Dude, you're a little obsessed, aren't you? I mean, what are you doing? What do you plan on doing with all those?
Eating them.
Nice. That'd be a heck of a meal. 5 spotteds under one flip.
And then some of a lot more.
Oops. Yes. So their spots act as like fingerprints, right? But also, there's that little line that bifurcates their head a little bit? So you can count the spots in the front versus the spots in the back. This is what the naturalist was telling me the other night, actually. He was talking about how when he'd catalog these things or document them, that's how they would keep track of them. Like that would be a 3, 4, 5, like a 3-5, and stuff like that. But then again, like that's just the number isn't a good fingerprint because you can have a bunch of 3-5s.
Yeah.
But it's still one way of keeping track, you know? You might be seeing us doing this stuff. We are being considerate of the animals. We're keeping them moist and all that kind of stuff. No. because some people hate that word. So you might watch us. Keep in mind, we are keeping the health and safety of these animals front and foremost. We're keeping them damp. We've got water from this very spot to keep replenishing, their skin moisture with. And before we handle any kind of amphibians, we wet our hands. That's just standard procedure. But that's cool. I mean, we got 5 in one flip. That rocks. If you want to know more about the activity and breeding behaviors of the spotted salamanders, I've got some really good videos on those, and I'll include some links on the screen and in the description. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's starting to look like a good season. I was pretty skeptic. I was actually pretty nervous because a lot of the wetlands and vernal pools I've been going to don't even exist this year because of last year's drought, and we're still in a drought right now. And so a lot of the amphibians this year are not getting a chance to breed at all. I'm super thrilled that we've got tons of spring peeper activity, lots of wood frogs singing. This habitat here is going strong. So we'll definitely replenish the populations of the wood frogs and spring peepers in this locale. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Chris Egnoto, and I'll see you, not here, somewhere else.